left-wing Kingz. Listen, think, act, repeat. Project 2025 is a collection of conservative policy proposals by the Heritage Foundation, meant to reshape the U.S. government just in case Donald Trump becomes the president in 2024. So the project is riddled with systemic threats, social injustices, and other political dynamics that impact Black Americans in negative ways. So we're going to enlighten our viewers to Project 2025's top 5 dangers to Black Americans in the hopes that we can inform, inspire, and empower our listeners and viewers to take action and stop this project from coming to fruition. So danger number 1 is economic inequities. Cuts to Social Security, Medicare, and the Affordable Care Act disproportionately hurt Black communities who rely heavily on these programs. Wanda, what cuts does Project 2025 plan to make to these programs, and are those cuts justified?
Wow, it is quite a bit. And I was like, wow, my mouth kind of dropped. So the first one, proposal is to raise the retirement age to 70. Okay? 70. I hate to say it, but our Black community, we don't live sometimes to 7. Most of us do not. Like the average, just for everyone, regardless of race, is 72.6. So let's just round that to 73. So now you retire at 70 and you may have a good 2 to 3 years to be on your cruise ship. Jesus. And after that, you're in the ground. And then we don't even want to go there with Social Security and what happens and how not everybody gets their money.
Yeah,
cash your money in.
I'm cashing mine in. I ain't going to make it.
Just to put that into context real quick, Wanda. So if they're moving
60,
the retirement age from 65 or 65 to 70, does that mean you cannot start to claim Social Security until you're 70? Okay. I just want to put that out there.
Yes. So, and when you adjust the program's inflation calculation, it actually affects 20% reduction in benefits. So you actually are going to get less money as well on that, how they did it. I was like, I didn't understand the math on that, but I can just tell you the 20%, I did understand 20% and reduction. I understand that means I get less than what I would have gotten if I was 65. And 65 is pretty old, guys. I'm sorry. I think 65 is, you're pushing the limits. But just understand, again, the average age is 72.6, and they want to raise it now to 70. So you're going to be working forever with your gray hair.
This is Social Security, ain't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, this is Social Security.
Ain't this the money I put into the government? Like I gave them all this money this whole year.
That is exactly correct.
We know how, but
and they're gonna give me 20% less of my own damn money.
Your own money back.
Of your money.
You get the money that you pay now goes to people who
I'm being out.
Retire right now. We all know that, but I just want to put that out there because somebody with a smart ass. Well, that's not how Social Security works. You don't get your money back. No, you don't. Okay, we know.
And
that,
you will get 20% less of what you put in.
Yeah.
Okay, so just know that.
Well, 20% of the money I was giving other people, I'm going to get less of that.
Yeah, so spend your money wisely. Yep. So then the next one is Medicare. So increasing costs for seniors by removing Medicaid's authority to negotiate. So if they can't negotiate prices for you anymore, guess what happens to your seniors? They're now paying more for their diabetes because most of us get later onset diabetes, any type of cancer medications, just everything is high. So most of these people are going to die off because they're not going to be able to afford the medication to begin with. Okay, so just understand that. Like now you can't get your meds that you need. And we all know as you get older, your medical healthness and fit declines. So that's what the Medicare.
And that's a win for Big Pharma right there.
Definitely.
And it's taking away that $35.
Right. And there's an Inflation Reduction Act. So they want to get rid of that completely. So then there's no fighting. So whatever they charge is what you're going to pay. And if you can't pay, well, it is what it is. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That's when ACA cut trillions in funding, which would likely result in reduced healthcare coverage and increased premiums. So once again, if you do not have the money to be able to pay, meaning if you're not in a good financial situation, you're not going to be able to afford the insurance. So what happens to you? Your health declines and you die. The end. No one's coming to save you. No one's coming to help you. The government, they're not going, no ties to it. If you don't have the money to pay, you're not going to receive. That's the end.
God damn, the Heritage
so that's supposed to be great.
Heritage Foundation sounds like the damn Legion of Doom. Like this.
Well, if you're a corporation, you're winning. Yeah. You're winning. So the rich get richer. From?
This just sounds like a Marvel movie. Nigga,
yeah.
Like, nigga, I mean, literally, and all jokes aside, they are trying to take over the world and change things for you. And that's just being real on everything. And it's starting with attacking these benefits. Like I said last show, the Supreme Court secretly went down and pulled the power of a lot of our agencies without us even knowing. You know what I'm saying? All this comes into play of what they're trying to do, man. And basically it's to take some of the comforts you have in life away, whatever it may be. Some of the things that people fought for years for, that corporations want to get rid of just so they can make more money.
Make more money.
And rich people want to get, rich people want to do that so they can just get richer. The richer get rich and the poor get poor. And the people in the middle end up paying for everything. So, yeah, that's that Heritage Foundation. And I grew up in Heritage Northwest.
Oh, my God.
And I'm
There's
ashamed.
no correlation, people.
I'm ashamed now that I'm from Heritage. And these dudes, I'm just kidding. Heritage Foundation, though, man, that just sounds horrible. She didn't say nothing good in that. Like,
Nothing.
But
Well,
that's
you
just
have
one
money.
part. We're just talking about like she just broke off a
Yeah.
small chunk.
And I read up on the Heritage Foundation, and they based on Christianity. Really?
Help the
Really?
rich and suffer the poor.
Really? This is
I'm
what
not sure
Jesus
that's
would
what
do. This is what Jesus would do. You know what I'm saying? Raise your grandmama's medicine up so the big pharma could get rich. Come on, man.
Yeah.
Well, let's kind of talk about danger number 2. So danger number 2 is education. So eliminating the Department of Education and diverting funds to private schools undermines public education. We all should be able to agree on that. Ace, what impact will this have on the Black community?
Well, one, we ain't gonna be able to afford the school. You're not gonna try to come out with vouchers. But in the day, and the story is gonna decline our education and our schools where we're at. We're gonna be less educated. Meaning we're going to be able to qualify for jobs and compete for jobs and things of that nature, which is going to make the playing field less uneven again. You know what I'm saying? After we fought all these years to try to even it up. My biggest concern falls on when they say private schools, which not only probably say private, but also include charter schools, right? So that's just another way rich people make money. Now they're able to make money on education. They're able to privatize it like we do our prisons. You know what I'm saying? So now people with money can now build schools and make money off of that pretty much when it comes to that. And that's kind of, I think, where this part of this evil document is leading that toward, to where you're putting a public thing that we did with the government. Now you're putting it in the private hands where they can earn money on it.
Definitely. Let me explain to you what the Department of Education does, because some people, I don't think they understand quite as far as how it helps everybody in a whole. So first, I'll start off with Title I. Title I are funds that schools receive for lower income families, because most of us, again, are not making when I say lower income, I'm talking about making less than $100,000, $200,000. Most people, that's where they sit. So they get extra funds for that. If you want a student loan to go to school, and most people, I want to say it's about 90% of people use student loans in order to apply for their further education, for secondary education. It is very expensive. Anybody who has kids in college, I'll tell you that right now, we do very well. It hurts us when we're paying thousands of dollars for our kids to go to school. You're going to feel it. So no student loans. There's no loan forgiveness. There's programs in place that the Department of Education does for people who do servant work, like teachers, some healthcare workers, some police officers, and they get student loan forgiveness. That would be all gone. Pell Grants. So if you get a grant, meaning I go to school, I got all A's, I have a 4.0, and I've worked really hard in school, and I can get money to go to school. Guess what? Pell Grants, they all go away. So what it looks at, if you don't have money to go to school and provide, like I said, for education, it's not going to just hurt minorities. It's going to hurt anybody who doesn't have $400,000 plus in order to go to school, because you're not going to be able to afford it. There's every Student Succeeds Act. Like, I don't know why you would be against that. And that just helps students, again, prepare themselves for either technical work or for higher education, career technical institutions. So we have CTE courses, what we call it, in high schools that we do offer for like plumbing, electricians. All that goes away because that's funded through the federal government, Department of Education. 21st century community learning, meaning for kids that are like after school care, that's gone. So if you need after school care, you're not getting that. And the biggest thing to me is Office for Civil Rights. Your civil rights impact everybody in this room, whether you're male or female, Black, white, Hispanic, whether you're gay or not, your religious beliefs. That's what civil rights are, your personal freedoms. And guess who does that? Department of Education oversees the civil rights. And now you don't have that. So good luck.
Yeah, really, good luck. And at the end of the day, everything that you're talking about, man, it just kind of boils down to one thing for me. The federal regulation or the Department of Education at the federal level, if it is eliminated and they divert whatever funding that they want to these private schools, then it's going to leave it up to each state. We already have a big difference in our, I guess, I don't know what kind of word I want to use for this, but different states have different, like Texas may not have as a good education system as New York, right? There's already that difference when you look at those things. But now you're starting to look at, okay, it's up to the state legislature to make some decisions that they weren't making before because it was federal. And now they can choose like, hey, which school is going to get this money or which school ain't going to get this program. And they were already doing some of that, but it's just going to get worse because without the federal government being involved, that equality across the board for each state getting certain things is going to go away. And now you're going to see even worse education in some states than others. And you know, that's something that we don't want to see. We want to see that each state in here has the capability to succeed and thrive. And when it comes to our kids, we talk about how much we love the kids. Do we really love the kids? I know I love the like button. So why don't you go ahead and hit that like button? All right. If you're enjoying this content, hit the like button. And if you'd like to see more conversations like this, make sure that you subscribe to Left Wing Kingz and share our content on all of your social media platforms. So, speaking of civil rights, you brought that up. That's very important. That's danger number 3 of Project 2025.
They're coming for us.
They're trying. So rolling back DEI initiatives and civil rights protections weakens progress in addressing racial disparities. Ace, is there a need for these types of protections in 2024? And if so, why does 2025 want to eliminate these protections?
Yes, we need them. You know, and what popped in my head right now is what I heard on TV last night. They said if we switch to Kamala Harris, she's going to be the DEI candidate. They're actually saying that shit. You know what I'm saying? Like it's
bullshit,
a bad thing.
Man.
Like it's a bad thing. I don't care.
The DEI candidate. You know, a lady as accomplished as her. They're saying that about her. They're making it a bad word. That's white people shit. I'm just going to call it. You know what I'm saying? Nobody else has a problem with DEI. That's diversity, equality, inclusion. And I'm saying all white people, but that's some seriously racist white people shit. You know what I'm saying? To make DEI a bad word. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. And, you know, and they're going for LGBTQ. And I'm sorry, I don't know all the letters. My fault. But we know, you know what I'm talking about. But, I said, when I saw Roe versus Wade drop, the next thing I said, they're coming for civil rights. That's the next thing they're going for. And this is what this is basically set up with it. Project 2025 is set up like that. Go look at the Heritage Foundation and bring it up and see how much diversity is on those pictures. There's none, 0. You know what I'm saying? Which basically says they have an agenda to whitewash this country again. And when they say make America great again, they're taking us back. Real quick, when you start talking about education, I started thinking about, we going back to how school was back in the 70s. You ever see Welcome Back, Kotter? When education was unequal, you know what I'm saying? It's horrible, man. I mean, and they're pushing these agendas through Project 2025. It's just scary what they're talking about too. They got this big ass document somebody wrote up to put all this into play. You know what I'm saying? So, they're attacking our diversity. They're going after it, and I'm scared to see what that's going to come out to be, how that's going to look.
Definitely. Real quick, too, going back to the Department of Education, I don't want to go back, but I missed the idea. That's the big one, the Disabilities Act. So if your kid's disabled, that goes away, too. So you have no protections for your children being disabled. They ain't getting no extra money. They're not getting no extra assistance, nothing. It's beyond the individual or the parents.
Family Legion of Doom.
So on the civil rights, like you said, rolling back DEI, first of all, I find it very insulting for people to think that a black woman in power or a black man in power didn't get into his place because he was good or exceptional about what he did. What happens is we are overlooked a lot of times because of the way we look on the outside. Yep. Then we come into place and then we run shop and then it's like, oh my God, look what we have here. That's what DEI does. It's not that they are not well-rounded, not that they don't have the education level, not that they are not experienced. It's that people overlook us because of the shade of our skin, whether you be black or Hispanic or anything else indifferent from a white male. So that's what DEI does. It gives you your civil rights protections. And yes, in 2024, yes, we still need that. Look around. It still happens. Look at the conversations we're still having. Why are we having conversations about things that we don't need to have conversations about? Because we need to have conversations about them because they still exist.
And y'all still going for them. You're trying to get rid of them.
You know,
there's only one DEI hire that I know for sure, certain, and that was Clarence Thomas. He's the only.
Maybe him.
He's the only DEI hire.
Well, I don't know how he got hired, but again, we
needed to replace Thurman Thomas, and we got his stupid ass.
Yeah.
That's how that happened. That's
unfortunate.
Jesus.
On there. So you got to think about the employment, housing.
Thurgood Marshall.
Yes, education, your voting rights. Those are the things that you do need. So if you roll back civil rights protections, you're rolling back your voting rights, your education, your ability to get a good education, your employment, your housing. Also judicial appointments, typically conservative judges. They do interpretations a little bit differently from some people who are more well-rounded or independent or democratic on there. So if it's something with dealing with affirmative action or LGBTQ, police reform, they're not for. Their interpretations are just slighted, we'll put it that way.
They're coming for us.
Yep. Regulatory changes, deregulation efforts can impact civil rights. Of course, again, same thing, dealing with housing, education, less enforcement of fair housing acts.
They're coming
you try to go
for us.
buy a house and they may not, and they don't have to sell to you because you may be of a different ethnicity and they feel that maybe you don't have the financial means to pay. I mean, all those higher interest rate loans. You know, you heard of that, right? Like, people of color are going to go purchase something and their loan rates are higher than their counterparts.
Nah, that never happened.
You know, I mean, these are things that's like we are going way back before the 60s, 50s, 40s, 30s. And it's like, what are we doing taking a time lapse? You know, we're going backwards and we should be moving forward. We should be more progressive. Progressive is not a bad word, guys. It means to progress, to move forward, to do better, not to do worse.
Exactly.
Yeah, man, it's damn Heritage Foundation. Oh yeah, by the way, Trump has no idea none of this happened. Never heard of this or whatever. Even though everybody damn near that worked for him worked on this.
Whole another topic. Yep.
Jesus.
Yeah. So, I mean, speaking of work and what people worked on, that leads us to danger number 4, which is job security. So erosion of worker protections and union rights leads to less job security and lower wages. Wanda, how does Project 2025 propose to change worker protections and who will benefit from that?
Again, so it's aiming to streamline, like the federal government is going to have job cuts, right? So you're only going to have people that believe in like views are going to have those positions, and they're eliminating so many positions. So obviously we're going to have unemployment with the federal agencies as far as that's public sector jobs. And then you got private sector jobs. Deregulation might benefit from reducing compliance costs. But again, who are we hurting? We're supposed to be creating jobs, right? Now we're actually diminishing jobs. So now you have people unemployment. And so I don't know. It's just going to cause a lose-lose type of situation. You have less deregulation oversight of most jobs in itself, and then you're going to have less jobs, right, for the private sector in order to do said jobs, and then you have more unemployment. So we're going the opposite direction, and then therefore even less, people who are employed. Then you have inflation. You got people who can't pay for their, the food. They can't live anymore. So it's just a downward spiral and just out of control.
Yeah.
I told you, man. We told you before on this show, Trump's not your guy. Heritage Foundation ain't your team. They coming for you working, man. You know what I'm saying? They been. You know what I'm saying? They're talking about breaking up unions, man. You know what I'm saying? And we got unions that are going out and supporting these idiots. You know what I'm saying? And then you got and I told you, like when Biden went out and stood out with the union. He stood out with them and stood out in the strike. Told you Trump was meeting with the CEOs. He's part of management, man. And what they're talking about doing is breaking up unions so they can pay you less money. Mm-hmm. And they want to send your jobs overseas where they can pay less for it. They're working on their bottom line. A lot of us ain't old enough to remember when the Bushes were in office, but the Bushes were geniuses at doing this. They called it outsourcing. You know what I'm saying? And they gave American corporations the capability to build factories and stuff like that and outsource jobs that they would keep in America. Yeah. We had to kind of repair that and try to get jobs back into America, and that's kind of what's happening now. But that's what happened to a lot of the jobs and stuff. They got outsourced. Who did that? Republican Party did that. Starting probably before the Bushes, probably started with Reagan, but definitely the Bushes took advantage of it. And that's what they want to continue and do. And that's part of breaking up these unions and not having the power or having to deal with paying people here so they can widen their bottom line profits. That's basically all it is.
Right. And definitely, I just want to piggyback on that when you talk about that. Remember, you used to call for customer service and you're talking to people from India.
Yeah.
And people are like, I don't understand what they're saying. That's called outsourcing because you're going to pay them less than you would pay a customer service rep in America. So don't think that those things aren't happening, and they're going to continue to happen if we roll back deregulations on there.
And let's take it to the car industry where they're moving and building plants in Mexico now. So they can build engines, things they used to do in Detroit and they used to do in Ohio and stuff like that. That's how they want to bring that into full fledged. Now, a lot of people don't know and understand when Obama got in office, he fixed all of that. He fixed the car industry by leaning the money and saying, bring all those jobs back
Here. That was one of the caveats too. You must bring them home.
Yeah. So
I think that's important that we bring that up, like, the outsourcing of the jobs and factories and things in other locations. And, speaking of factories, it kind of brings us to danger number 5, the last danger for this topic, and that's environmental impact. So deregulation worsens climate change, and it disproportionately affects younger generations of all ethnicities, really. Ace, with all the climate events we've seen in the recent years, why would Project 2025 look to deregulate activities to help clean up the environment?
Once again, man, they're looking at it from big corporation. Big corporation don't want to help pay for it. They don't want to safeguard the factories, like you said, or do the things, have to be held accountable and have to pay that money to regulate things so the environment can be safe. So they can make sure that, we have a good planet to live. If it's gonna, if it's gonna help their, if they can get us to be deregulated, it can help them make more money. You make the shareholders happy. That's what they want to do. And that's why they have this attack on climate change and trying to say there's no such thing as global warming and stuff like that. They're doing that because they want to push that false narrative so they don't have to pay for it. They don't have to safeguard the stuff. They don't have to make sure you're safe at work. You know what I'm saying? They don't have to make sure that you got good health insurance and stuff like that. That all comes into play.
Yeah.
Definitely reducing regulatory burdens on businesses and corporations. And I do somewhat agree that they need to have something in place for those companies to help them offset some of the costs so then they won't be so against, putting some of these regulations in play. Because if they do cost them thousands of dollars and it offsets them, I think they'd be more apt to it. But it all comes down to, again, money.
Yeah.
Money. It is harder and it's more expensive in some aspects to become cleaner. But overall, like either we do this or we are going to kill ourselves. Like we're not going to be in existence. So that's what I don't understand. It's like I understand the price tag is higher, but I also do understand, well, we won't have an earth to live on, or at least your children's children or children's children's children. Eventually, we won't be here. Right. You know what I mean? So it's like, so what's the cost in that? What dollar signs do you put on life on there? So I do think they have something in place to help some of those regulations be in place.
Yeah, I don't know what the return on investment is for human life. You know what I'm saying? But if you have an expense out there that you spend in a cost, you want a return on that investment. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, the government already has all types of regulation in place. Like for the food you eat, you have to have like certain amount of like, things like clean food or the like they'll go in and they look at your whole factory and make sure that your shit's clean and this, that, and the other. Yeah. And that costs money for any corporation to do that. But if you choose to sell chicken wings and there's regulation around keeping the factory clean so that you can sell chicken wings to me so I can eat it and I'll be safe eating it, then you absorb that cost knowingly. And you try to get the best return on the investment you can get. To your point, yeah, I think businesses would be a lot more apt to not worry about regulation if the government gave them some type of money to help with that expense. But you chose that business. Mm-hmm. You chose to do that shit. You know what I'm saying? So if now you have to be responsible and make sure that your shit is safe because the government tells you your shit needs to be safe so that our planet isn't destroyed, so that people don't die, then guess what? Those are the steps that you're going to have to take. You know what I mean?
Yeah, let's bring it into 2024 so maybe it hit home for a lot of people. Like, government has to make businesses regulate the way they handle your information. Yeah. So you won't get cyber attacked. And that's a real thing, people. Mm-hmm. But imagine if they didn't have to do that and governments don't have to, businesses don't have to pay for that. They can just willy-nilly and let your information go anywhere. And they have no responsibility for it. That's kind of why they have a lot of the social media people in court now, is because they're trying to claim that they're not responsible for that. But just imagine if that's the case. I mean, it falls more on food and stuff like that. I think a lot of people think of that. They think of the 20s, back when, they have no regulation in the factory, and, a rat could fall in your meat and they didn't care. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It ain't like that no more. We're way past that. But right now, I think what hits home for us now is cybersecurity. The government has to step in and tell these businesses, hey, you know what? You need to do this in order to run your business, or we're going to fine you. You know what I'm saying? To protect these people's information. So take that into play.